a black woman in this country whose mortality rates are incredibly high. I understand making sacrifices and trying to mitigate risk when it comes to your family.
What the hell is she talking about? What the hell is Elle Duncan talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, this is your modern day ESPN. Are you starting to understand now why I refer to ESPN as the worldwide leader in woke? How does a conversation about the potential retirement of Tua Tagovailoa, how does that turn into a pity party for Elle Duncan? How does a conversation about concussions turn into a discussion about the mortality rate for black women in America? How does a conversation about the NFL turn into an opportunity for Elle Duncan to once again paint herself as the ultimate victim, the sacrificial Elle? If I were Stephen A. Smith this morning, that would be the last appearance of Elle Duncan on my show. Matter of fact, if I were Stephen A. Smith, Elle Duncan, she would have never been on my show to begin with. You already have one insufferable panelist on this show, Molly Karam. Well, KC, Molly's not a panelist. Molly is the host. Yeah, someone should tell her that. Every time I watch First Take, Molly Karam is interrupting. She's hijacking a segment to speak a lot of words without saying a damn thing. Elle Duncan has a long history of hijacking shows on ESPN and turning it into a platform for her to air her own personal grievances. Remember when she used a segment on SportsCenter to talk about abortion? Remember when she called into First Take last fall to lecture Stephen A. Smith on gender issues? Well, actually, that might have been Malika Andrews. I get them confused. Hell, there are so many woke women at ESPN, they all start to sound the same. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you happen to stumble across this video, be sure to subscribe to my main channel, Behind the Line. If you search Behind the Line here on YouTube, it'll be the first channel that pops up. Earlier this morning, Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Clark, they were talking about Tua in the NFL. There's a lot of speculation right now as to whether or not Tua will or should retire. There's a lot of people claiming that the NFL should step in and force Tua to retire, or his family should force him to retire. Now, me personally, I think Tua should do whatever he wants to do, whatever he thinks is best. This decision has absolutely nothing to do with the NFL. Roger Goodell is not barbaric if he allows Tua to return to the field. Not Roger Goodell's decision to make. If Tua wants to return and the medical staff clears him to play, he should play. For some reason, people can't seem to understand that. They can't seem to understand why Tua would risk his health, why he would potentially risk his quality of life in the future to continue playing football. Stephen A. Smith was trying to explain the reasoning behind the decision if that's what Tua decides to do. Stevie, he was explaining the decision-making process from a man's perspective. He was talking about the sacrifices that men make to provide for their family. Whether they are sacrificing time with their kids, maybe they work in construction and they spend weeks away from home, whatever the case may be. Stephen A. Smith was explaining this from a man's perspective. Last I checked, the demographic of the National Football League, it was 100% male. Last I checked, there wasn't a female player in the NFL, which is why I'm struggling to understand why Elle Duncan felt the need to say this. Watch for yourself.
As someone who is a woman who has 2 scars that go from hip to hip because I've had 2 C-sections in an effort to provide for my family and create a family for my family, I understand sacrifice. A black woman in this country whose mortality rates are incredibly high, I understand making sacrifices and trying to mitigate risk when it comes to your family, expanding your family and protecting your family. All I am simply imploring is that anyone in Tua's corner, someone that truly believes and loves Tua, is having a real conversation with him right now about what quality of life looks like.
Again, What the hell is she talking about? As someone who is a woman who's had 2 C-sections to create a family, I understand sacrifice. There's not a player in the NFL that can relate to that kind of sacrifice. Contrary to popular belief, contrary to the belief of deacons at Woke United Methodist, men cannot get pregnant. What the hell do mortality rates have to do with Tua getting concussed? I'm struggling to draw the parallel. You want to know why some men complain about women in sports media? This is a prime example. Now, there are some great women in sports media. Erin Andrews, Pam Oliver, Kelly in Vegas, Rachel Nichols, Sam Ponder. You know why they're good? They talk about sports. No one is tuning into ESPN to hear Elle Duncan talk about mortality rates. No one is tuning into First Take to hear Elle Duncan compare her C-section to Tua's concussion. If Elle Duncan wants to talk about that, she can do that on her shitty podcast. The reason she probably doesn't is because no one is listening to it. You know, since becoming executive producer at First Take, Stephen A. Smith, he has made it his personal mission to give people opportunities that he believes wouldn't otherwise get them. He will often claim that First Take represents diversity, but every time I watch it, it looks like BET, which would be fine, wouldn't be a problem if it was actually entertaining. The problem with First Take, it's not Stevie giving people opportunities that wouldn't get them otherwise. Problem with First Take is Stephen A. Smith giving people opportunities that aren't qualified for them. But give me your thoughts on this. Elle Duncan is a disaster. The thing is, Elle Duncan is talented. She could be a decent broadcaster. She just can't get the hell out of her own way. She kind of reminds me of Molly Karam. They think they're the stars of the show when that could not be further from the truth. Should Stephen A. Smith remove Elle Duncan from First Take? I damn sure would. What about you? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the main channel tomorrow.